Great. Well, here with Steve today. Excited to talk about, making a decision on what industry to decide on if you're looking at becoming a franchisee or investing in any type of franchise. So I think the first thing we got to start off on is giving people just an idea so they have an understanding about franchising. So when you purchase a franchise, you invest in your local market. You do, pay a franchise fee that's varying depending on a bunch of different factors, and you own an exclusive territory where you get a chance to operate that business in your local market. And the big thing for franchising, and when you're picking an industry, it's very important to understand not only what the business does, but what your function will be in the business. So the three ownership structures are called owner-operator, semi-absentee ownership, and then absentee/executive ownership.
You just want to go into those just briefly to make people understand what each of those mean?
Definitely, yeah. So quick overview. Owner-operator is pretty much exactly like it sounds. Almost every single franchisee, when they say owner-operator, does not mean that the franchisee would actually be usually doing the function of the business. So what I mean by that is, if you are a food franchise, they don't expect you to actually be the cook. But if you're an owner operator, you are usually expected or plan on being the manager, at least at the beginning. So you would be managing the day-to-day business, just as you would imagine, going in and making sure everything's running smoothly, hiring, firing, the whole works. A semi-absentee, generally the accepted amount of time is 10 to 15 hours a week for you as the franchisee owner, and you hire a manager who actually runs the day-to-day. So about 10 to 12, 10, 15 hours a week, you're going in, making sure the manager is, doing everything right. You're checking the bank account, you're still responsible for the manager. Maybe there's weeks you don't go in, but you're still checking in on the person that's actually running the day-to-day. You're just not, you can do this alongside a full-time job. Many people do this.
Yeah, it's more like a business that, has been established for years and has a lot of, management structures or levels. So that way you can just be the business owner and just work off of numbers.
Correct. Yeah. So you are still answering the manager. If there's a big problem, you're still getting called, if there's a large customer complaint or if there's some sort of, overarching issue, you're still probably making sure that gets handled by your manager. And then, of course, if your manager has to leave, you have to replace that person. So that's
you're not dealing with the day-to-day
correct
stuff.
Yeah You're not dealing with like the issues that arise at 9 a.m. You're not taking every single call.
Sure.
And the other thing is you can go from each ownership structure, most want you to progress up. Yeah. So the final one being absentee/executive ownership model is where you truly are not even really answering the manager, and a lot of this has to be in congruence with the franchisee, or you can scale up to the point where you have multiple territories, and you can have a general manager that you're responsible for that then manages the managers underneath you at each individual location or at the locations they're responsible for. And then some franchise systems have this model where from the beginning they actually help not only hire the manager, but then they actually run the manager's day-to-day and can even pay out of your account on your behalf. So you're still the owner, you still own an LLC in your name for your local market or whatever market you decide to choose. But the franchise system in a lot of cases in this absentee executive model will actually run the manager's day-to-day duties and actually make sure the bills are being paid and everything like that. So those are the different structures that you want to think about, because how you're going to become an owner in this new business is really important when you're choosing which direction you want to go.
Sure, yeah. So just say I'm a person, I come to you and I say, Dylan, I want to buy a franchise, and I have no clue what industry, what business. I just come saying I want to, make money. What's the general process of maybe some questions that you would ask them that would help to guide, pick an industry and then a brand?
Sure. The first two questions really are always, what are you interested in? Right? So what do you like? What are or even better yet, what are you passionate about? And two, what are your skills? Because what your not only ownership structure, but then what industry you go into is huge on what those particular answers are. Because if you really just do not like or have any care at all for food, right? If you're just not really passionate about cuisine or restaurant businesses, whatever, that's probably not something you could get into or should get into. You could get into it, but it's probably not something I or you as a consultant would recommend somebody to go into.
Sure.
Right. So that's the first one. What do you like? What do you dislike? What are you
more
passionate about? Yeah, seriously, right? Because if you dislike it, even if it makes a lot of money, it's
You're
going
gonna
to
hate it.
Yeah, it's really going to be hard for you to do, even on the absentee level model, because, at some point you do have to probably sell the business, whether it's to your kids or whatever. So I would recommend not doing something you hate,
Sure.
do something you at least like, but preferably are passionate about. And then 2, what are your skills? Mm-hmm. Because, and this is really important, even people that have a lot of business skills or a lot of business savvy, if you want to get into a business that has some sort of technical knowledge or has some real operational challenges, you should not be in an owner-operator role in a business that you don't have the skill set to do that. Even so, you could be a good salesperson, understand bookkeeping, understand investment strategies, but if you want to be operating a business where you have to be, directly managing logistics people, like a moving company or something like that,
Sure,
and your skills don't match that, we're probably just going to cut that right off the table. Because it's really difficult to do, even if you have, like an overarching good business, acumen and ability, right? So those would be the first 2 things.
Sure.
That I would look at.
And then do you ever, ask people about like lifestyle? Because I know, or I could imagine, if you are going to get into a restaurant type franchise that primarily does dinner, and they don't have an absentee owner model available from the start, you're probably going to be spending some nights and weekends at least paying attention to your phone. So for someone who has, not saying that it excludes them, but small kids, or they like to take a lot of vacations over holidays, might not be the best fit. Is that like an accurate
100%? Yeah. What are you looking to do exactly? So after we find out, okay, what are you into, and then what do your skills fit? It's what do you want your life to look like? That's a great way to put it. And that kind of ties into the initial point of being an owner operator, being a semi-absentee. What are you going to be doing? You know, if you're quitting your job that you don't like because they work you a lot of hours, and you want to own your own business to have freedom, you don't want to be in a super labor intensive business. Even if you like it, it makes money, and you could do it, because now you're just trading one boss for another. You're trading a boss that you directly work for clients that you're, and customers that you're working for multiple times. So you don't want to just do that. So exactly right. You also want to figure out, what do you want your life to look like, that matches those three things, right? So what do you want it to look like? What do you like? Hopefully you're passionate about, and then what do your skills actually fit? And then the last piece, right, is, okay, then financially, what makes sense, and how do we have to approach, making sure we match all those things up?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So with the skill set portion, I think it's important to highlight that the skills don't have to be directly related to the technical work that you do. So for instance, just say I was a successful plumber and I'm really good with my hands, and I want to buy a franchise, and I see, insulation, even though my skill set is in plumbing, not insulation, I would have cross-compatible skills that would make me successful in a service-based industry, because I understand working in clients' homes. I understand, the physical demand. You can't ask someone to move a house, so you understand like what goes into it. Is that something that you like to think about as well? Because I could see a lot of times that people say, well, here's my skill sets. I'm a plumber. Or here's my skill sets. I work in sales. Like, what sales-based franchise can I get into? And it's like, well, it's not just about the direct skill sets that you have. It's applying them to the specific brand that owner operator would need. So for instance, in an industry like we have with junk removal, being quick to leads is a big deal. So if you come from a background where you're in sales and you're used to hopping on the phone right away and getting on top of type of things, that skill set would help a lot, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, 100%. I think the advantage of, obviously we're biased, of working with us as a consultant, is that what we can do is we can categorize those things, and we can present potential opportunities and brands that people go, well, I didn't really never thought about that because I'm a plumber. It's like, no, what you are is a great manager, of plumbers, right? Yeah. And that's what you want to be. If you wanted to be a plumber, you should just be a plumber, and that's totally fine. You don't need a franchise to do that, but if you want to be a really maybe successful owner of a plumbing business, you may want to get involved in, being a plumbing franchise. Or if you just want to be in a business where you get a chance to, help people every day, and work with a labor force that you're really excited to, empower and embolden, that's where we get a chance to match them with the right one. So you're exactly right. It's not just about saying, oh, here's my skill set, so that must mean I do this. What it means is, here's my skill set and my lifestyle goals along with my financial goals. How do I partner up with the right, particular industry that matches what I'm going to be doing on a day-to-day basis? Because you're exactly right. You could be a great cook. That doesn't mean you should own a restaurant business. You may actually be better at owning some type of home service business, as an example, just like you said, because you say, wow, you're used to working in that fast-paced environment, right? And managing people that, are a little more blue collar, which is great, and is a different skill set than having worked in, upper management. Not that you can't transition from one to the other, but if you have that background and that's your skill set and that's what you like to do, well, then you should probably, open your mind to not just, oh, I need to, be a restaurant owner. I need to own a restaurant franchise. Like a home service franchise might be something you could excel in, make more money, and possibly enjoy your lifestyle more because it matches what your direct goals are. So exactly right. Yeah, it's not as simple as, oh, well, I should own a plumbing franchise. It's like, no, there's probably a lot more, if you broaden your thoughts about what your skill set is, and then obviously what your goals are, lifestyle and financially.
Yeah. So obviously we're a little bit biased because I think that's one of the main benefits of using a franchise broker, if you're a potential franchisee, is that you're able to have a very candid conversation and say, hey, Mr. Franchise Broker, I don't really know what I want to get into, but I do know this is how I want my life to look like, and they can help direct you or point you in the right direction to achieve whatever type of life you're trying to create. So for someone who's on their own, if you got to give a couple quick piece of advice, because not everyone's going to use a franchise broker, taking into account what we just said about those skill sets not being, taken verbatim and trying to have that application. Like if you give a couple tips, if you're looking on your own, is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, first thing is obviously it's twofold, right? Because you're investing in your future and investing in an established business. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is you want to invest in what it's going to look like when you get started, but then also what the potential is for you long term. So if you say, hey, this is a business I want to be able to grow and run forever, and every day I get to wake up doing this thing I love, that's totally great, right? But if it's a business where you say, I want to, start owning it and managing it, but my goal is to kind of retire, but keep the business as an income stream for me, as I get a chance to work less and less and spend more time with, my family or whomever. That's going to be a different business than the original one, where it's just a passion 100%. Business that you're going to be in every single day. So understanding those two, sometimes they can collide, but actually have an understanding of what your real goals are. It's okay to be honest either way, but that kind of ties into which one you're going to pick because they're all different, and that goes into you're also investing in a business, right? Because you're investing in the franchise system. So if they're looking for empire builders and you're looking to have a business where you can retire and not really work too much in a year or two, you may not be a good match. Maybe you are, but maybe not, and you kind of want to get a feel for that when you talk to not only the development team, which is the people actually helping you through the process at the particular brand become a franchisee, but to the franchisees that are in the system already. So when you have validation calls, and then if you get a chance, which most do, to talk to either one member or the entire executive team. What are they like? Does this seem like a group that is here trying to build a good business for the long term? And not that they don't. Of course, they want to have successful franchisees that produce a lot of revenue and cash, but they're maybe not as interested in trying to dominate the entire world. Or are they on that side? Are they trying to build a super large brand that's going to be the best in their category?
Sure.
So understanding how your goal matches with their goal and with what the actual industry is going to help you, before you get engaged with someone. Because, if you're qualified and you have skills, they're all going to want you to be in, but you got to make sure you match up.
It's a matchmaking to the nth degree. Like they're going to make sure that you match into their system, but you want to make sure that their goals are matching with what your goals are, because you're getting into a long-term relationship with these people.
And you got to know that first, right? Yeah. It's like just like personal relationships, you have to know kind of about yourself and maybe what you're looking to do and what you're not looking to do. It's not a good idea to get married to somebody who really wants kids in 6 months or right away if you don't foresee yourself having kids in the next 5 to 10 years, you know? So that's something you would want to know. And it's, you know, obviously not quite as extreme as that, but it's a, you know, it's a good kind of analysis or analogy to franchising, right?
Yeah.
Because you are buying into a business. You're not, you are quote unquote starting, you know, your own location, but you're not on your own, you know? So it comes with what the system brings, which is great if it's matched up. And if it's not matched up, that's not so good, right? Because you're going to want to do something.
There's gonna be friction.
Exactly. Yeah, of course, you know, and it happens. So that's something you just want to know before you just jump into one that, you know,
sounds good.
Yeah,
on the
sounds
surface.
good. Right. Yeah. And most of them, you know, if you've been around for enough time and you have enough units, they're probably successful. Almost all of these franchises that, you know, have this established presence, but just because they're successful for most people doesn't mean they're going to be successful for what your goals are.
Exactly. You could be successful in it, but it's a deeper question than that is, are you going to be happy doing this?
Right. Yeah. And what if you're not going to be happy, then what's the point of putting all your money? You might as well just put it in the stock market.
Yeah,
you know, you might as well
sense.
put it in something else and just, you know, work, which is fine, you know,
Yeah.
but you're doing this not just because you want to make money and build an empire. You're doing it because you want to actually enjoy doing that. You know, that's the whole point.
Yeah. So it sounds like the high level takeaways from that are have good conversations with the brands, not just about the financials, but also what it's like going from opening up day one to what the end goal can be and what they envision their franchisees to look like. Because if they want their franchisees to build a great little business and then kind of, you know, kick back an autopilot, that's one type of person versus the people like you were alluding to with the, you know, the empire builders. They're going to want someone who's kind of not going to take their foot off the gas until they physically can't expand anymore, which, you know, there's an expectation level there from the franchisor to the franchisee that like, you work 60 hours a week all the time because we're all trying to build this thing to take over the country.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And especially on your validation calls when you're talking to the people in the system. That's huge.
What's the validation call?
So validation call is when you get a list. Now, this depends on the brand. You should probably ask for not everybody, but as many as you possibly can get, and franchisees at different levels, ones that just started, ones that have been in for a year, and ones that have been in, you know, for as long as possible, because you don't want to just hear from the top that are making the most money, because hopefully they're all super happy. You want to hear from people that maybe aren't doing quite as well as those top
financially,
or exactly, or are just early in the process, and that can be a good tell, you know, for not only to that culture piece that we were talking about Empire Builder, maybe not quite as aggressive on that side, but also just about, you know, what's it like for the people actually in the system, you know, and a lot of times the systems do work, and maybe the particular person that's not doing well either just isn't pushing hard on it because they don't want to, right? Or because they're just not as qualified as they should be and are just not, you know, it's just not working for them. And part of it's just market. So you want to make sure you kind of get all that understood before you go in, and then you hear from the brand, who of course is going to give you their highlights. But when you actually get a chance to talk to people in the system, you can really dive into the, you know, the teeth of, well, what's it really like? You know, you kind of get a peek under the hood as best as possible, right? I mean, they're probably not going to send you their tax returns, but you can get an idea.
But there's a big difference if you're talking, just say hypothetically, you have a brand and you know, pick some of the people who are in the lower 50 percentile earners. There's a big difference between talking to a few in a specific brand that all say, yeah, man, to be honest, if you're not doing over, you know, 1.5 million, like, you don't really get to hear from them, versus, yeah, I'm a one truck operation. I love my life. I don't need to make any. I already make a lot of money. Yes, I'm not doing as much as other units, but I'm my only employee. I just have my one truck. I make a ton of money personally, and I'm happy just being a local business. That's two totally different conversations coming from the same part of the percentile breakdown of franchisees in terms of revenue. So that's why we don't just want to look at, they have people in the lower 50% doing X, Y, and Z. I don't know if I want to go with them. It's not just about the financials, and that's something that I like to harp on a lot because it's a lifestyle that you're buying into. It's not just about making the money. It's about what is the life associated with that. Because then you could talk to some of the people in the upper portion of the income earners, and they say, listen, like, I work my ass off. Like, it's a ton of work to get as big as I am.
I'm pulling my hair out.
Yes. And That's
and I like it.
Yeah,
but
it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just a thing. Like, okay, so if I want to get into that upper echelon of earners,
I may need to be putting in the work, which
Exactly.
could be great and fine, you know. And you want to say, okay, well, do you think you could have a manager, or maybe talk to someone that does? And they say, yeah, no, we're doing well, but you know, I do have a manager, so I'm not making as much as I could. So exactly right.
It paints the picture that you can start. You know, if you have a brand that has the bottom 50% being the single operator that's super happy, and then the top percent that has a large business that works really hard, and you can kind of paint yourself in that picture of like, oh, I can start in this business being a one-man operation,
right,
and do well and have the option to build it as big as I want, depending on how much work I want to put in.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a big one for people to really get like a good realistic grasp, because, you know, most of the numbers of these franchises are really good, but it's just an understanding of what it's like to be in them. You know, I mean, there's no situation where you just, you know, put your money in and they just give you $1 million for nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be that case, it's either going to take time, you know what I mean? Or you have to let, you know, kind of the system work itself in, and eventually maybe you can get to that point without putting much effort. But, you know, you have to have some sort of realistic goals. And a lot of times on those validation calls, you get the best of both worlds. You go, wow, maybe it's even better than I'm picturing. And in some cases you go, okay, maybe it's not going to be perfect. So, you know, you really want to make sure you validate with kind of all ranges of the spectrum, like you said, because just because something looks like this way on paper, right, just reading the FDD or kind of reading what the breakdowns are, doesn't mean that's actually how the franchisees feel in their day-to-day. And that's really what it's going to be like, right? Because as much as you're trying to make money on this investment, you're also trying to make money in a way, like you said, that it's a lifestyle that you can be excited about, right? Or that you can enjoy more than whatever you're doing now, right? Because if it wasn't for that, then, you know, like we said, you might as well just stay with what you're doing. You know? So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So would you say, you know, that each general industry, if we break it down, just for a couple examples of like food being one, home service being another, do you think that most brands in each industry tend to have similar lifestyles, or is it completely determinant on the brand?
Yeah, I think it's completely determinant on the brand. And also, you know, I mean, like, for example, there's so many breakdowns in the verticals of food and home service. Like the different industries are wild. You know what I mean? Like junk removal is way different than mobile pet grooming, than mobile or than, you know, window cleaning and repair, then
garage door.
Yeah, garage door restoration. You know, these are wildly different. Just like food, you know, breweries is a lot different than, you know, like bar and restaurant type, you know what I mean?
Compared
so
to
there's
fast food like Dunkin', like even if you just take fast food from Dunkin' and McDonald's, one's open from 6 a.m. till like, you know, 4, and the other one primarily does the most of their business from 4 until midnight. You know, it's like, so even in that quick fast food, you have a morning.
Are drunk people coming, or are they not? Right?
Yes.
I mean, seriously,
no,
as simple as that, right? And the same for like a brewery or bar. Like breweries don't, like, I mean, of course people are drinking, but usually it's closed by 9, 10 p.m., right? Where a bar, it gets active at 11, right? If you're a fun bar. So, so it's a lot different, you know, and same with home service. Like, man, do we start at 5 a.m.? Yeah, you know, you might, you know, so if you're an owner operator and you like to sleep in, maybe not a good idea. Fit. Yeah, I mean, little stuff like that, people think like, oh, wow, the numbers look good. It's like, well, sure, but, you know, you got to make sure you actually understand what's happening. So, yeah, I think, and that's just on an industry basis, let alone brand by brand.
Well, I was going to say, because you don't want to, and where I was getting to is you don't want to cut off a whole industry just because there's some, you know, things you hear about like the food industry that you might not like. That doesn't mean that all all brands in the food industry are the same.
Yeah, they're wildly different. Yeah, and exactly right. The brands can be way different because some brands are more fun and you know, they're maybe more loose, and some are super button up and professional, and you know, they're very much focused on the bottom line, and depending on who you are and what your goals are and what that time, you know what I mean? And if you want to own 50, it might be better to be on, it just depends on a whole bunch of different factors. So that's why you really got to make sure you know, if you're not going to work with a consultant, you take the time to understand yourself first, you know, and that the advantage of a consultant is kind of like the advantage of any expert is that they've already seen someone very similar to you and they've guided them through the process, you know, thousands of times. So doesn't mean they know you exactly. They still got to get the info and they still got to understand you, but they have a pretty good understanding of not only what someone like you experienced, but also what the brands are offering, so they can quickly match, you know, the little nuances that you'll have to figure out on your own if you don't have one, right? So once they get that info from you and that profile for, not only what you are, but what you're looking to be, they can really match you. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I just think you fit well with this brand because I just know.
I know the owners of the brand.
I know the owners
and
the development team. Like you would just like them a lot more than this one, which is, they also kind of match your profile, but I just don't know if you guys would be a good fit together. Not that they're bad or you're perfect or anything like that, right? You just match up personality wise with this person that or this group of people. So that's a big one too.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's another high level takeaway is, if you're doing it on your own or using a franchise broker, once you get to speak to the development team, or if you happen to speak with the owners, is do you like that person? Because if you like that person, you're probably going to get an idea about how the brand has been developed. Because if you meet someone and they are like a super sales savant and you're just like, this guy, I know he could sell, water to a fish, might be a little bit of a different if that doesn't match up with you personally. Now, if you're also like that, you're like, I get this guy.
He's like me.
I know what he's going to be able to do. And I'm not saying that selling the fish or is a bad thing, but it's a personality trait that's different than, the technician turned entrepreneur that's very, we just do hard work and go
exactly
home.
Right. It's very much not only brand industry specific, brand specific, but then it really comes down to like people specific. And it sounds cliche, like it's all about the people, but it really like rings true once you start comparing. If you say, if I line up for whatever senior home care brands on paper and walk them through, like, man, what's the difference? You're like, well, here's some, there's some differences that like you can understand, but they can be not only wildly different in performance and in attitude and, marketing, whatever, but man, you get in and talk to the people and you're like, wow, they're all so these are 4 totally different just wildly different cultures, right? And it's like, and different people and personalities involved. So it's like, it can help to have somebody that already has that info, and at least saves you the time and energy of saying, hey, this is just a no-go for you. So at least focus on, instead of focusing on these 8, let's focus on these 2 or 3, right? So that what makes sense for you. And, even little stuff like understanding territory and potential expansion of territory, right? What's open? Yeah. Like, do I want to own all of Jersey? Well, it's going to be hard for me to own all of New Jersey, if, it's already sold. Yeah. So that's something, for us, it takes us all of 2 seconds to figure out, where, for the person that doesn't have that network, it could be a lot longer, so little stuff like that. But I think if someone's choosing an industry, it's really, it sounds cliche, but you got to know yourself first before you pick the industry. And I think most people kind of get it reversed, where they think I need to find a good industry. And of course, you don't want to.
It makes logical sense. You find a good option and you pick it, but it's not just a logical decision that we're making here.
Yeah, it's almost like personal matchmaking, right? It's like you have to know yourself first, and that's how you become attractive, right? Yeah. Like, and it's same for this. You have to know yourself first, and that's how you become a good franchisee, to know, okay, like, even if this is a good industry that I think would be, good and profitable, it doesn't match me because of, the lifestyle, or because of the personality, or because of whatever the reasons are, because I know myself first, and that then helps you choose the industry. So it's, really knowing interest, passion, and then what do you want your lifestyle to look like? And then from there, you're really going to be ahead of the game, for, and remember too, if any franchise, anybody reaches out to, they get, especially the successful ones, the ones we work with, they get a lot of inquiries, and most of them are not very good or not very qualified and don't fit. So, being one that actually goes through the process, they want to make sure you're not a waste of time. Absolutely. As much as you're making sure they're not wasting your time.
Yeah, it doubles down to the point of, knowing yourself, because if you're coming in with a different personality than what you actually are, it might feel like it's a good fit in the beginning, but it's totally not at scale, right. Actually, as you're building out.
Yes. Yep. For sure. Yeah. And knowing your goals, right? Yep. If you just say, hey, I just want this one, and then I'm going to try to make as much and barely work and then sell it, that's totally fine. But if,
got to find a specific brand that fits that type of desire.
Exactly. Where if most of the rest of the franchisees that you validate are multi-unit owners that, really build and just focus on huge sales and growth, then, it's just not going to fit.
Sure.
So yeah. Awesome. I would say that's how you choose an industry, is start with yourself and, work from there.
As always, if you need any help getting more information on the franchising process or looking to pick a particular brand to get some more info on, feel free to reach out. Always happy to help find you the perfect franchise brand.
Yeah, exactly. Always here to answer any questions. Thanks, and until next time.